back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. This is Gianni DePoce, your host. It's great to be back with you on this Friday as we've had another interesting week in financial markets. We had a 25 basis point rate hike from the Federal Reserve, as well as a series of seemingly contradictory comments by both Fed Chair Powell and Treasury Secretary Yellen. So markets are still dealing from the fallout of the banking crisis, as this week we had the start of Aries season, which is a period that's well known according to WD Gann studies. Basically, the start of each new season leads to a time where markets can reverse. But I think even more significantly, this past week, we had Pluto ingress into the sign of Aquarius on the 23rd, and then we're going to have Mars ending his 8-month trek through the sign of Gemini and finally ingressing into the sign of Cancer on the 25th. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. We can look at some markets, starting off with the Dow Jones. Stocks down to start the day on Friday. We still are rallying off of that low from our critical reversal date time band of March 15th, but hit a little bit of a high earlier this week, and now let's see if we can form some sort of higher low, because next week we have a couple of very important geocosmic signatures. We have a trine between Mars and Saturn on the 30th, as well as a conjunction between Venus and Uranus on the 30th as well. So I think especially the Venus conjunction with Uranus is especially important because Uranus rules tech, and we've been seeing technology outperform the market significantly ever since Saturn left the sign of Aquarius. And this is something we've commented on at length in the last several months. But now that Saturn's in Pisces, we're seeing struggles more so in the energy and crude oil market. But Uranus is also associated with breakouts or false breakouts. Whenever Uranus is involved, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's a very unpredictable revolutionary planet. So we have to be on our toes for a potential break of support or resistance next week. Again, with Uranus, we're not exactly sure, but I do think it's worth keeping an eye on grain markets as well, because we've had some pretty big moves. And I'll encourage you to check out the MMA monthly grain report that was just published actually a week early this past week, written by MMTA graduate Wyatt Fellows, an excellent report. And he details at length what's happening in the grain market, if that's something that interests you. So anyways, keep a close eye on tech and grains next week with the conjunction between Venus and Uranus. We're still seeing leadership from the NASDAQ, which I would argue is a risk on signal in of itself. So let's take a look at the 10-year interest rate on the Treasury, falling to new multi-month lows here. This is especially significant given that Pluto just ingressed into the sign of Aquarius, with the federal regulators basically saying that they're going to backstop, deposits as much as they need to be. That is a sort of, adding implied liquidity, let's call it, into the financial market. It's not overt, but it's covert. And basically they're saying, well, if we need to add liquidity, then we will. And so I think that ties into Pluto going into Aquarius. We discussed this with Puyan Zulfagarnia last week. Whereas Pluto in Capricorn was the bailing out of corporations, governments, and institutions, Pluto in Aquarius could turn out to be the bailing out of the individual. Aquarius is a very individual-oriented sign. So that's what we're seeing in bond markets right now. And basically, it's a flight to safety trade. Equities dealing with some volatility. And I think this is actually good for real estate going into prime home buying season in just a couple weeks here, at least in North America. So let's take a look at precious metals, looking at GDX, the gold mining ETF. This is something we cover in the monthly ETF report, which was just sent out to readers earlier this week as well. So gold rallying in alignment with our expectations here. Miners also following suit. Coming into this year, we talked about the potential for precious metals to do well, given Jupiter's transit through Aries. Now, time is running out on that transit because Jupiter's only going to be in Aries until May 17th. But we basically deduced that this could be a bullish transit for precious metals because the sun is exalted in Aries and the sun rules gold. So far, so good. It's been volatile, no doubt, but let's see if we can take out this high. We seem to be in the early stages of a new cycle, which is generally bullish. I want to take a look at energy here. USO, we covered this in the monthly ETF report as well. So, like clockwork, Saturn goes into Pisces, and, we formed this high on March 6th. Saturn went into Pisces the day after on March 7th, and big drop in demand. Obviously, prices fell, but we are in the time band for a 3-year low, as we discussed in last week's video. So, we need to be on our toes for the formation of a significant low in the coming month. So we'll keep readers updated on that in the monthly reports and in the weekly reports where we cover crude oil as well. And last but certainly not least, want to take a look at Bitcoin, because Bitcoin continues to behave in a bullish manner coming out of those long-term cycle lows in November of 2022. Consolidating at a new high. We closed at a new high this past week, and this is definitely a market that we want to keep an eye on with the conjunction between Venus and Uranus next week on the 30th, because according to our studies, which we've conducted, Bitcoin really likes Venus and Taurus. It tends to correspond to much wider price moves during that time. Now, I say it likes that transit because we're in an uptrend right now. It could correspond to a reversal as well. But again, with Uranus involved, tends to be more along the lines of a breakout. So this is definitely a market to keep a close eye on next week. So that's all the charts that I want to review with you for this week's column. Thank you all so much for watching. I encourage you to check out our work at www.mmacycles.com. And next week, we will have the publication of the monthly cycles addendum report written by MMTA graduate Puyan Zulfergania. If you want to learn more about Puyan, I encourage you to check out last week's interview with Pim. And that's all for now. Thanks so much for watching. www.mmacycles.com. We'll see you same time, same place next week.